All right, joining me right now for more on all of it, Belpointe Chief Strategist David Nelson, along with Heritage Capital President Paul Schatz. Well, President's putting a deadline on this thing. It looks increasingly like it might happen. The White House thinks it's got the votes it needs. David, are we going to be looking at lower taxes come the new year?
I sure hope so, and I think the center of all this is certainly the corporate tax code. We got to get to 20%. My hope is that they don't phase it in. I don't think the president wants that, and I think he's right on that. It'll only kind of stall the process. You're going to hear from the left. You're going to hear an argument that the marginal tax rate in the United States for corporations is a lot lower. Mm-hmm. You know, that simply doesn't take into account the thousands of companies that have left the United States for a lower tax status. If our tax reform, or rather our tax system, is so star-spangled awesome, why have thousands of companies left the country at this point? You know, we have a 77,000-page code that actually encourages them to do just that. So it's full speed ahead. Let's get it done.
It's messed up. And, you know, you heard the president earlier today say that, look, you know, this has been a long time coming, right? I mean, we've basically been waiting 30 years for any kind of meaningful tax reform. And what I'm stunned by is that over and over, Paul, you have seen taxes just creep higher and higher and higher and higher and act really as a penalty on businesses, small business owners. Yet, you know, Chuck Schumer, as you heard, there are tricks, not treats.
Yeah, pretty cute.
This is the argument that the left always pushes, right? Over and over again. Somehow this is just all for the rich, Paul.
That's right. And listen, you can search history. There's never been a country that taxed its way to prosperity. That's because you can't do it. We all require basic services. I fully understand and appreciate why you need taxes. But clearly, in the last 9 years, our tax system is choking our economy. We've got a little bit of relief with regulations. You're going to get tax reform. I'm a little disappointed, frankly, because the Republicans, one by one, are now trying to hold the process hostage. And I wish they'd come together and understand that just because it impacts people doesn't make it bad. Everybody has to give a little to get a lot. And if they'd all take a step back, they'd have a much better margin to pass this without having to go back and negotiate one off here and one off there. The one thing they don't do, which surprises me, I'm surprised they don't take the AMT and at least reach across the aisle and tell the Democrats, look, if we keep
try.
it in, but
I mean, they tell them this, right? They tell the Democrats, if they actually looked at this thing. By the way, you had Chuck Schumer out talking about how bad it was before he even saw a darn thing. Right, so it's a little bit just political in that sense, David.
Yeah.
They've got one note, and that one note is lower taxes are bad.
Yeah,
and that's what they're selling.
It's a great soundbite from Chuck Schumer, and he's trying to be cute here. And Paul brought up a very good point. We're really hostages here because the lobbyists have literally descended on Washington, and every lobbyist is going to have an agenda to push, some loophole that they're trying to save, and it makes the job very difficult. It's not surprising it's taken 30 years just to get us to this point. I hope Kevin Brady and the team and the president can kind of hold it all together. And
so do you think ultimately they say, okay, we're not going to really push that agenda in terms of asking people in New York and California,
yeah, but that's
New
the problem,
Jersey.
Trish, because you have a 77,000-page code. The idea was to make this simpler, and you can end up gumming up the works and not accomplish what you really set out in the first place. I don't want to add 2,000 pages to the 77
Wait, so
already.
are you okay with that? So would you like, I mean, the president's talking about, and what we're hearing anyway, is that they would like to basically get rid of SALT, which is the state and local tax deduction.
I agree with that. I think that's the right thing to do. I think it's unfair to the center of the country where they're subsidizing, you know, our high state and local
and look,
taxes.
I have no interest in saying this.
And I'm a high tax state. I'm in Connecticut.
Yeah, you get
I'm just as bad.
A little bit back for that. Okay, Paul,
listen,
very
quickly. It's time to get rid of SALT. It's time to get rid of the hedge fund carried interest and the energy subsidies. It's time to, as David said, let's simplify everything. Let's get rid of the loopholes. Let's get rid of the special interest subsidies and have a simplified tax code that works for everybody. Okay, so what you're talking about
is something that is good for the middle class, all right? But
agreed.
Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, they don't see it that way. They really just don't. Do you think they're being intellectually dishonest, Paul?
Of course. That's the system we're in now. I guarantee you they've read nothing and they won't read anything. But you know what? That's the system. It's the hand they're dealt. All they care about right now is poking holes in this so the middle class may reconsider their votes for 2018. I think the mansions and the height camps are going to be hard-pressed to not support this when all's said and done.
And what they care about, Paul, is they want to have something to fight for in the election cycle next year. They want to gum this up. If they can slow the economy down in any measure or form, that plays to their hand.
Isn't that tragic to think that they would actually want to see our economy slow down? You heard Donald Trump out there today saying, look, we got 3% growth. Better than anybody thought we were going to have, especially considering all those hurricanes. He said it could have been 4%.
Confidence through the roof this morning.
Isn't this what I told you, though? I said over and over again, if he becomes the president, you better believe he's going to be saying, hey, do you see that 5%? Suddenly, all of America is going to know what GDP is. And you know what? That's a good thing, because ultimately, if everybody's doing better, some of this political bickering, and maybe this is why the Democrats don't want the economy to do better, to your point, David, some of the bickering is going to have to fall by the wayside. Anyway, thanks so much, guys.